designated as International Day of Commemoration and Remembrance of the Shoah, of the Holocaust. Last Sunday, we had the opportunity as part of our movie night to review a wonderful and very meaningful movie, The Return of the Violin, which will still be available for those to share. And it was a perfect opportunity for us to invite this morning Sheri Stern, who serves currently, I would highlight, as our Shlemut nurse. And Sheri has been working diligently on what I know she considers a labor of love and a memory, a journey, as she says in the subtitle to her new book that just came out, Reuniting the Neshamas, a journey of remembrance, commemoration, and healing, and a perfect Shabbat for her to spend some time telling us about this very meaningful book to Sheri, to Jeff, to the entire family. And I would hope that you'll have an opportunity to buy the book and to get to read it. Sheri?
You know, after all this time of doing mute and unmute, I still forget. Good morning, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out, for I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. Shabbat Shalom. Today is 2 days after January 27th, International Holocaust Remembrance Day, more than 76 years after World War II and the Shoah ended. And that warning passage from Martin Niemöller that I just read still rings true, because hatred, intolerance, and genocide continue to rise globally. Yes, there are a number of genocides ongoing, 3 of which are the Darfur people in Sudan since 2003, the Uyghur Muslims in China since 2014, and the Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar since 2017. You can check genocidewatch.com for more information. And what about the Tulsa massacre of African Americans more than 100 years ago? All the lynchings, the Native American Trail of Tears, not labeled genocide, but clearly hate crimes, persecution, and death. Jews are not the only victims of persecution and genocide. And those 2 plagues continue to occur in this 21st century, not just hundreds of years ago. So let me share my screen. So this, as the rabbi showed you, is the book, Reuniting the Neshamas, A Journey of Remembrance, Commemoration, and Healing. I'm just going to go through these kind of quickly and then continue. This is our family. And when I say our, Jeffrey and I have been high school sweethearts. So they welcomed me into the family even before we were engaged. So this on the left is my father-in-law, Rolf, when he was about 15. We believe this was taken probably shortly before he came to America. His mom, Augusta Stern, his dad, Julius Stern, and his 4-year younger sister, Margaret, who would have been about 11 in that picture. And this is the picture that helped Oliver, one of our German mishpacha, find us. He looked up Stern on the internet. It's kind of a little scary. And he found this picture. This is my sister-in-law, Gail, who this is her graduation from law school. Right next to her on the left is none other than, drum roll, Judy Cataldo, our Beth Israel congregants, mom, Erna Schwartz, Alva Shalom, and Erna's brother, Irvin. He changed it to Irvin. It was Irwin. So they are brother and sister. This is Erwin's wife. Jeffrey is behind there. You can't even see his face. This is Dad, Alva Shalom, Mom, Alva Shalom, and that's me in 1979. This is a picture of 9 family members: Suzanne, Aunt Jenny. This is our Julius Stern. You'll hear in a moment there's another Julius Stern. This is Julius and Augusta Stern, Dad's parents. Uncle Wilhelm, an uncle. These are all siblings here. This is the other Julius Stern. This is Julius and Silly Stern. This Julius and this Julius are not related, except for the fact that this Julius married Silly. These are Judy Cataldo's grandparents, maternal grandparents. And Silly was a sister with Augusta. So 2 sisters married 2 Julius Sterns who were not related. This is Selma, and this is Margaret. Also a picture taken before my father-in-law came over. These are the 6 Stolperstein. Stolpersteins are these little brass plaques that are planted in the pavement of the ground of the last known freely chosen residence of victims of the Holocaust. These are Judy's maternal grandparents who she never got to meet. You'll see at the bottom here is a mosque, the mosque or Mortet. Or Mortet means murdered. So they were killed in the camps. This is Aunt Jenny Weil, who I just showed you. She was murdered in Sobibor. And fortunately, these 3 made it to America at different times. Erna, his maiden name was Stern. She married Siegfried Schwartz. So these are Judy's parents. And this is Judy's uncle, who I just showed you, Erwin Stern. So Flucht, 1937, they were able to make flight and escape to the USA. This is almost all of our German mishpacha. This is, I'll tell you our significant 4 first. I call them the significant 4. This is Rolf. This is his Christina, Rolf and Christina. The 3rd person is behind them. That's Oliver, very, very tall. And the 4th person is here, Ira. So those are our significant 4. Oliver is the one who found the picture on the internet. My sister-in-law, Gail. Jeffrey's in the back. You can see his face now. Shaked, we learned, is an Israeli relative. Who knew? One of his male relatives married one of our Stern women. And this is Dietmar's Christina. And Dietmar was taking the picture, so that's why he's not there. And this is Herbert. Herbert and Rolf were the co-leaders of the Meinertzhagen Stolperstein Initiative chapter when we first went. Now, this Christina and her husband Dietmar are the leaders. This is right as you enter, for those of you who may have been to Dachau, in honor, it's a plaque on the wall just as you enter through the Arbeit Macht Frei gates. And it says, in honor of the 42nd Rainbow Division and other US 7th Army Liberators of Dachau on April 29th, 1945, and in everlasting memory of the victims of Nazi barbarism, this tablet is dedicated May 3rd, 1992. My father-in-law, Alva Shalom, was one of the 42nd Rainbow Division who helped liberate Dachau. And this last one is, I'm going to try to enlarge it. I don't know that I can do that. Okay, but down here at the bottom, you see the 3 names, Julius Stern, that's our Julius Stern, Augusta Stern, and Margaret Stern, where they were born, the city, and the date. This is their actual deportation list, because the Nazis kept such incredible records. And up at the top, I don't know if you can, yeah, I think you can see this. This was in a chapter in a book. It's also in the archives. This was their transport to Minsk on July 20th, 1942. Okay, I can stop sharing screen now. So I want to share just a bissel of my life-altering experiences included in my recently published book. My father-in-law, Ralph Stern Alva Shalom, was born in Germany in 1923 to parents Julius and Augusta Stern Alva Shalom. And 4 years later, they welcomed a baby girl, Margaret Alva Shalom. In 1933, their lives and millions of others were changed irrevocably when Hitler came into power. Along with many other Eastern European Jews, likely some of your own families, my father-in-law was the sole survivor of his when he was 15. Imagine being forced to choose which one of your children to save. They said goodbye at the train station in Meckenheim, Germany in September of 38, 2 months before Kristallnacht. They never saw each other again. Fast forward to January 3rd, 2014, 69 years after Dad, then a US Army soldier with the 42nd Rainbow Division, helped liberate Dachau, and 4 years after Dad had passed away. My sister-in-law, Gail, my husband Jeffrey's sister, receives an email from a guy who claims to be a German historian, Oliver, who is searching through the internet for possible descendants of Julius Stern. Ended up being not our Julius Stern, it was Judy's Julius Stern, who is searching through the internet for possible descendants of him and others in order for a German organization to commemorate Jewish victims of the Holocaust with Stolperstein. Oliver wanted to know if we were descendants of the 6 individuals they named, and if so, the organization wanted to invite us to Germany for the family's Stolperstein ceremony later that year. And Stolperstein in German means stumbling block. All 6 were related. We knew all 6, though some we had never met because they were murdered in the Shoah. They were the parents and uncle of our cousin, as I mentioned, Judy Cataldo. Her parents, Erna Stern Schwartz and Siegfried Schwartz, and her uncle Erwin Stern, who were able to get to America. Her maternal grandparents, Philly and Julia Stern, who died in the mosque, and our Aunt Jenny Weil, sister of Silly and Augusta, died in Sobibor. Why were these German people doing this? Christian German people. We learned the answers over our 8 months of developing email relationships. Because they are humane, because they are ashamed of the atrocities that their countrymen carried out during a time when the world went mad. Ira wrote that in one of her emails. And some, though not all of them, are the now elderly sons and daughters or grandchildren of Nazi perpetrators. And they all want to make some type of amends, some type of reconciliation and commemoration for those who perished and for us, their descendants, who were so cruelly robbed of growing up with grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins, just because they were Jewish, just because they were seen as other. The book chapters describe Stolperstein, who is considered a Holocaust survivor, and highlights of our email correspondence across the ocean with our significant 4 mishpacha, as we call them. Emails include Ira and Oliver's extensive research about our family, to which we responded with a gamut of emotions, from sadness, disbelief, anger, horror, grief, to include a sense of awe, trust, and compassion, and friendship developed from the genuine chesed, giving of oneself fully with love and compassion from our significant 4. And that was only through their emails back and forth before we ever met. So our significant 4 are Ira, the archivist. When I told them that I'd been scared to come to Germany, she replied, "Of course you were. You were traveling to a country whose people killed your family." Her research of our family helped return them to us spiritually. Number 2, Oliver, the German historian, the tall guy. He knows his World War II and Holocaust history. And everywhere we went, he came to our sides and interpreted into English for us before we could ever ask. Number 3, Rolf, one of the co-leaders. He advocated repeatedly with neighbors and local government officials, went to their homes to explain the importance of this for us, the descendants. We wanted Dad to receive his first Stolperstein at the family's Hohenlimburg home together with his parents and sister, thus finally symbolically reuniting them 76 years after they'd said goodbye at the train station in 1938, reuniting their neshamas for all eternity. And 4, Christina, Rolf's wife and translator, a woman filled with empathy. Furthermore, the chapters describe our ongoing beautiful relationships with our Christian German mishpacha and a universal call to action to practice the golden rule, accept each other and create peace in our words and our actions. Readers have shared with me that as they read Reuniting the Neshamas, they feel as if they're on the journeys together with me, journeys that were not just physical and geographical, more than 4,000 miles across the ocean, but educational, emotional, spiritual, healing, and if you can believe it, even fun. To those of you who think I would never set foot on German soil after what they did to us, why would I go back there just to stir up old painful emotions? I'd be petrified to go to Germany amidst the recurrent rise of anti-Semitism globally. Trust me, been there, done that. And I almost didn't go to Germany in 2014, which is in the chapter entitled Paranoia Sets In. But go to Germany I did with Jeffrey and Gail. Judy and Bernie Cataldo were unable to join us in 2014, but they made their journey another year. One powerful experience that stands out from our first journey is when Rolf took us into Meinerzhagen to show us our first Stolperstein in the ground. There were 2 for Aunt Jenny and Uncle Wilhelm, both siblings of Dad's mom, Augusta, each of whom perished in the Shoah. After educating us, Rolf unexpectedly got down on his 72-year-old knees, raised his hand to grasp a cloth and jar of brass cleaner from his wife, Christina, and silently and reverently went about polishing Aunt Jenny and Uncle Wilhelm's Stolperstein, which become dirty from foot traffic and make it difficult to read their inscriptions. Such chesed, such remembrance, such validation of what we already knew, that they lived and loved and mattered. My tears flowed. What Rolf gave us with that simple, eloquent gesture, priceless. In 2018, my second journey, it was Dietmar who was on his knees, polishing Dad, Margot, Julius, and Augusta's Stolperstein. To symbolically show how each of us were impacted by this dark history, yet we're now coming together to remember our loved ones, I asked if I could help him polish the stones. Dietmar paused, looked up at me intensely, and said, "You may, but it is our duty." I was speechless. I stepped back respectfully, allowing him to complete his duty and perhaps his own process of healing by himself. Maya Angelou has said, "Life is not measured by the number of breaths you take, but by the moments that take your breath away." Another experience from 2014 was in the Bonn Memorial Center, a museum commemorating victims of the Holocaust. You have to realize this was a week-long process, and we had been inundated for days already with the horrors of the Holocaust. To be fair, we had asked for that education. As we walked with our guide, I remember feeling numb and overwhelmed from all the information, pain, and loss. I remember thinking to myself, yeah, more pictures of Holocaust victims, more dead people, more of the same horror. Is this going to be something I haven't already seen 10 times? And just then, I did. My eyes focused on 3 framed pictures of Julius, Augusta, and Margot, alongside pictures of their Hohenlimburg Jewish neighbors who were also murdered in the Shoah. I froze. I stared. These were my people, our family, whom we'd never met, the loving parents who'd done whatever they had to do to pick one child to save, the younger sister who'd planned with her parents to reunite with her older brother in America soon, but instead suffered for years and died brutally with her parents and many others at the hands of Hitler's Nazis before she even became Sweet 16. And then I felt the tears abruptly coming. I excused myself, told Jeffrey and Gail I was going to the bathroom. Once there, I let it all out, sobbing silently, tears and mascara running down my face. arms crossed as if to hold myself together instead of breaking apart, because that's what I felt was happening to me. Enough. How could this have happened and continued for so many years? How could human beings do this to other human beings? Suddenly, Rolf's wife, Christina, entered the bathroom. She threw her arms around me, hugged me tightly and silently for a long time as I sobbed, and then whispered in my ear, "It was wrong. I'm sorry." Christina continued to hold me in her loving embrace until I stopped crying. I thanked her as graciously as I could. Her actions, words, and the way she made me feel spoke volumes. Also, and we're coming to the end, also in 2014, while waiting for the Stolperstein ceremony to begin, I suddenly felt an urgent need to speak Hebrew aloud in front of German people and recite the Kaddish for our 6 relatives. I asked Rolf if I could do so, and he immediately replied, "Of course, we will make it so." When the time came, he handed me the microphone, and I recited the Kaddish reverently, proudly, fearlessly. And afterwards, I felt so empowered in this place in 2014, almost 70 years after the Shoah and World War II ended. In this place, where Jews were once rounded up like animals and criminals and deported to concentration camps throughout Europe to be tortured, starved, murdered, gassed, burned in crematoriums, and buried in mass graves. In this place, where Jews were once afraid to openly practice their religious beliefs, celebrate their holidays, or speak their Yiddish language aloud. In this place, I chose to speak Hebrew, pray Kaddish, and honor the memories of every Neshama who died at the hands of Hitler and his Nazis. In this place, I needed to stand up and speak out in proud, fearless defiance of every Holocaust denier and all those who wish to wipe us and others off the face of the earth. In this place, perhaps reciting the Kaddish was my steady anchor that paradoxically allowed me to feel free. So why write this book? What are some take-home messages? 1, to honor my father-in-law, Ralph Stern, one of the kindest, dearest mensches, with a capital M. 2, to leave a written legacy to our significant four mishpacha, Ira, Oliver, Rolf, and Christina, to Dietmar and his Christina, Stefan, and the other Christian Germans who've become mishpacha, for all they've given me and our family, and so that you too will come to know them as mensches with a capital M. 3, to share my bearing witness to the tragedies of the Shoah and to the countless acts of chesed from some beautiful German human beings. This is my responsibility, my duty to share these stories. I will never forget what Hitler did to our family and millions of others. And I will always remember the chesed and the neshama-touching healings gifted by our German mishpacha. So please do not ever place our German mishpacha in the same group with Nazis. When we group all people of any group, white, black, Jews, Muslims, Arabs, Israelis, as one group, we are no better than the Nazis who did that to us. Remember, all Germans were not then, nor are they now, Nazis. And 4, to remind everyone that the responsibility and duty belongs to all of us, especially to Jews commanded to perform tikkun olam, to stand up and speak out against all wrong to all people, for we are all others. So we must all also take actions, collaborating together for sustainable justice and peace for all. In conclusion, this passage by Flavia Whedon says it all about our German mishpacha. Some people come into our lives and quickly go. Some people move our souls to dance. They awaken us to a new understanding with a passing whisper of their wisdom. Some people make the sky more beautiful to gaze upon. They stay in our lives for a while, leave footprints on our hearts, and we are never ever the same. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheri, for a very important, a very powerful and meaningful and emotional, with all of the Kleenex that I saw around on the screens, presentation and sharing with us. We're a little bit early, so maybe we can take some questions now instead of having the kiddish conversation.
All right, and I want to invite Judy. I forgot to email you yesterday, Rabbi.
Okay.
Judy Cataldo and I will take questions and comments, etc.
Perfect.
So Judy, or where are you?
Judy, would you like to just add something? We can put you up on the screen and highlight you. Can someone highlight Judy? There we go. And you have to, go ahead, Judy. We can't hear you.
You're muted.
You're muted, Judy.
All right, I'm functioning now. First of all, wait a minute. Bernie and I've got to move over to Bernie's.
Oh, because you're getting an echo.
Yeah, we do this in the same room, and I'm usually off of audio. Sheri, first of all, you did an outstanding job. Obviously, I've read the book several times here and there, repeated parts, but what you said today was just absolutely outstanding. And yeah, very emotional. I was just going to say I certainly grew up in the home of not being told anything. We'd hear,
Judy, stay close to the microphone because we're losing you.
All right, let me move me up. Let's see.
Thank you.
Okay, hope this works. My house was, no, it's nothing that we want to talk about. It was terrible. And that was the end of the discussion. And I grew up with that attitude, and obviously the very common attitude of we didn't buy anything German and we would never go back to Germany. I can remember when my Uncle Irvin did accept an invitation to come back to Meinerzhagen, and I can remember how angry my mother was at him. But of course, it was a healing thing for him. And that's something I think that we all discovered from this contact that we got in 2014. We learned so much about our family. These people in Germany are just so caring, warm, wonderful.
Mensches.
Really, yeah, they're mensches, totally. And it very much changed our feelings, and in so very many ways. You know, learning about our family, but our whole attitude toward Germans. Our trip, Bernie and I did it a different year, about 3 years later than Sheri went. It was so special. It was emotionally difficult, but it was so rewarding. And I started speaking German. I have to share this one. Our first night there, we were actually in a hotel that it was about a block away from the home and the business that belonged to my family, to my mother's family. I obviously couldn't sleep with the emotion and the jet lag. So I took my iPad and I was playing solitaire. I had switched and I was speaking the numbers in German. It was totally freaky.
Oh.
So, all right, that's enough. I'll be quiet.
I just wanted to add one thing, that all the proceeds from the book are donated to HIAS, which is the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, who unquestionably saved my father-in-law, Abba Shalom's life by bringing him over. The U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum and the Stolperstein Initiative in Europe.
Thank you. And Judy, we remember your mom. Of course, those of us from Beth Israel and Shabbat morning. She used to come with you and Bernie for many, many years. And we remember her fondly. So for a few minutes of those that,
Rabbi, can I interject?
sure,
There were times that that Ralph, Sheri's father-in-law, also came with us. So you had them both at Beth Israel.
very nice. I remember your mom more. That was probably, you know,
Well, she came more
different time.
frequently, yeah.
yes, right. So let's open it up. If we have individuals that have questions, we have 4 screens. So it's difficult to see everybody. You can put something in the chat. You can put a hand up possibly, or raise your hands, or unmute your screen if you have a question. Feel free to unmute since.
I was just going to ask, is there a contact for the stumbling blocks? Is there a point of contact?
You have to know where there is. We have our mishpacha, and they may know who the archivist, et cetera, is in whatever town your family was from. So we could start with that. But if you know what town your family came from, we can contact our mishpacha and say to them, you know, do you know who the archivist is in such and such town? And that would start the process.
I do know that.
Okay, and you can also go on Stolperstein dot, I don't remember if it's org, Stolperstein.com or Stolperstein.org /EU/EN. And the EN is for the English, and that can tell you about the process.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, or you can call me, Susan or Judy.
Right. So I'm sure that Sheri and or Judy would be willing to serve as resources to anyone to get started on what is often a very rewarding journey into learning more about our families. Someone had said, what was the name of the book again? I believe it was in the email, but it's Reuniting the Neshamas. The Neshamas of all who were lost, all together placed there, reuniting the Neshamas.
And it is
Any other-
available. Oh, I was
Go
going to say
ahead.
it is available on Amazon. I'm happy to send you the direct link to it. It's $20. But those of you that live locally, you can get a little something extra if you like. I'm willing to hand deliver it to you, sign it, and that way your whole $20 for the book gets divided 3 ways and goes to the organizations. If you buy it from Amazon, whatever's best for you.
Perfect. We'll
smaller
let
amount.
people know.
Support the organization.
Other questions? I know we've had a number of comments in the chats about other meaningful visits to Germany and about family members. Nadine?
Yeah,
Only 'cause
Sheri,
you're
I
not on the
just
full
find it
screen.
very interesting and very commendable that while you obviously are a very close part of this family, it was not your direct family. And yet, obviously, you were emotionally and in every way very, very much connected. What made you be the one to do this?
I really think that it was divine intervention. When I came home, I told anybody who would listen. I just could not stop talking about them. And by then, it was it ended up being my last year of working before I retired. And so for a year, 2014 to 15, I'd been talking about this, and you know what was going on in our world at that time. Ain't so different from now. And I realized that it wasn't enough just to verbally share this with some people. It needed to be written, and it needed to be a legacy, and et cetera, et cetera. So,
You did a fabulous job.
thank you.
I wish all my kids had been here to hear this.
Well, apparently this was
It's recorded. Yes, it's recorded, and we'll send it out in the Divrei next week. So you'll be able to forward it to them.
Oh, good, good.
Okay.
Because I think it's important
Okay,
And I think it's important for people to see and hear the emotion and the motivation and everything
Right.
that went with it. I knew that Jeff and Judy were related, but I didn't have the whole background.
Okay, I don't see any chat hands up. A little bit about our trips in the chat, no questions in the chat. Anybody else have
And Dan,
something they would like to
yeah.
share or ask?
I do have a question. You mentioned
Amy.
how gut-wrenching it, I'm sure it must have been, that they had to choose one sibling, but I'm not sure if you mentioned why they had to choose one. Was this a matter of they could only afford to send one?
There were, we always wondered about that. But my father-in-law actually answered that question, not because we asked him, but because in 2003, one of our cousins at a family reunion, he asked, he was doing interviews of some of the older relatives, knowing that, to have a legacy. And he posted it. And one of that was, he had asked Ralph about, my father-in-law about coming over, and why was it just him? And my father-in-law said, number one, the people in America or wherever had to pay for the privilege. They had to pay Germany deeply for the privilege of allowing a person to get out. So even though my Augusta's sister Bella who was already here before Hitler came into power, she would have loved to have brought all 4 of them over. She didn't have enough money. Ralph, my father-in-law's parents, Julius and Augusta, did not have enough money to get more than one visa, one, ticket for the train and the ship and etc. So it had boiled down to that. So, and my father-in-law's parents left him with the hope that, because if you read it, there's a letter from him. It was a very light tone. Even in 1941, they were able to write to each other for several years, until he got a letter back saying return to sender, addressee unknown. And so that was the reason why there simply wasn't enough money between the 2 families. And he was the older sibling. He was 15 and a half. Margot was 11 and a half.
Okay, we'll take one more question if someone has or comment. No, well, once again, thank you, Sheri, very much, and Judy as well, for your very informative, but very meaningful and touching to each of us, your story. And I would encourage you to get the book and help support the organization. Sheri, maybe you want to share with me what you did in our meeting this week about a call for the library, the book being put.
One of our mishpacha, Stefan, has taken it upon himself. Nobody asked him. I mean, he just took it upon himself. He thinks that this is an important, historical and emotional piece of work that needs to be out there. He has already gotten my book. He has written to colleges and universities. He's already gotten my book into the Goethe University in Frankfurt, in their library collection and their catalog. He has gotten it into the Leibniz Institute for Contemporary History, which does 20th and 21st century German history. He just sent me a list of 6 more places he sent it to, et cetera, et cetera. He also told me that, Judy, that he had taken 2 books to their Hohenlimberg bookstore. It's not what you know, it's totally who you know. He took 2 books just to get it started. They've already sold, they want more. And so it's very, very exciting. I'm hopefully going to be speaking in the, and I'm happy to do virtual anywhere for quite some time. I'm not ready for crowds. I'm going to be hopefully in person in November at a renowned Baltimore lecture series that meets at OHEB and Har Sinai OHEB Shalom. So I want to take it on tour and share, because I think the world needs to hear this. And I want to go to churches and mosques and, et cetera. So
All
anybody
right.
has any contacts, let me know.
Thank you very much. Once again, we will continue now with the Chatzi Kaddish of the Musaf service, the middle of 184.